Hi, thanks for joining me today. It's Kathy. I have a new project to share with you. Today we're going to be making a Father's Day card, and it's going to be a masculine card. So here's a quick shot of that, and we're going to get started. We're going to be starting with the blue circle card base. We're going to cut that in half and just use the one side without the gold, and we're going to use the donut card base and just cut that in half and just use one side. And I have the vanilla, or what am I saying? The layering circle dies out, and I do have the measurements on the bottom left there. We're going to use the larger one on the blue card base and the smaller one for the vanilla piece. Just make sure it's centered to the cutout center there. All right, and with soft suede, we're going to do a bit of shading. So just shade around the outer and inner part of this vanilla piece, just to give it some dimension. And then we're going to shade the blue piece with Island Indigo. Now we could have done the big size clock on the card there, but I decided I wanted smaller size. Okay, for the envelope bag, I cut off the sides, and then I did cut those two little panels for the card, but I decided to change it up and use the larger piece. That is Island Indigo at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And for the bag, I just cut it in the vertical, just make sure it's up and down vertical. And that's cut at 4 1/4. And I'm just going to leave the top and bottom open to peek out the Island Indigo color. And with a scrap piece of Island Indigo, I'm going to cut a small sliver at 2 1/2 inches. And that's going to be the clock arms. So cut that, and I then cut it again, a smaller piece for the shorthand. And now we're just going to glue the two pieces together for the clock, and then we're going to glue the arms. I just kind of overlap that, overhanging on each side. And I felt it was a bit too long, so we're just going to do, or just snip off each side just to shorten it a bit. And then a glue dot or glue blob in the center of that clock, and we'll put the arms on that. So this clock is almost done. And we're going to move on to the sentiment. So we're going to use the do not forget you are the best sentiment, but we're going to use the bottom sentence. And with the day word on the curved sentiment, I just stamped it out a bunch of times to get a couple of D's and one A just right. And we're just going to cut those out to get the word dad. And I like doing that. I think it's a lot of fun when you cut out the little square letters. Okay, and then for the sentiment, I would actually use a trimmer, but I was somewhat being a bit lazy. So I just hand trim that out. And our sentiment's going to read, "You are the best dad." And this piece here is the blue circle sticker. I just stuck it on some cardstock and then cut it out and then cut it in half. And I'm using the crushed curry color and shading that in. And when you do that, just make sure you leave a little bit of a white space, which is going to look like a nice little glow for the bells. And of course, it adds nice dimension to it. Okay, so back to the clock, we're just going to stick it down with some foam tape. And I am sticking it down on the left and angled slightly to the right. And we'll just also foam tape the little bells. And that looks pretty good the way it is, but I decided I'm going to use that little squiggly icing sticker piece, and we'll just put a little piece down on that to anchor the bells. Just make sure it's even to the clock. And actually, you could have put numbers down. I originally was going to, but I didn't really like my numbers, and I really didn't feel like digging through all my stamp sets to find the right number size. And I certainly don't have Roman numerals. Roman numeral stamp set. You don't see that very often, but that would be pretty cool if you had a set. So I just decided to leave it plain and simple just to keep the card really easy to make. Okay, and I think I've almost finished fussing with those bells. And we're going to move on to the sentiment. So we're just going to raise that on one side, and then I use runner tape on the part that's going to lay on top of the clock. So we'll just stick that down, and then the next thing is to stick down the dad word, and I have foam tape on each one of those letters. Don't ask me why I put the A down first. I think it'll be easier if you put the last D first and then go from there. All right, and then we're going to put it on a top folding card base, which is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. And I thought I had my camera on, but I didn't. For this next part, I put some sequins on the card because it was just looking a little too plain. And these are the sequins from the kit. I used the flat sequins on the center of the arms, and then a small pearl on the center of that, and then a couple more of the flat sequins on the card panel. So here are a few close-ups of the clock. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye for now.